The DREO BaristaMaker Milk Frother has options for coffee foaming, coffee frothing, and drink stirring for things like protein shakes. How well does it work? Let's put it to the test. So there's essentially two modes. There's a froth mode and a stir mode. Let's start off by looking at the froth mode, and we're going to try with some regular 2% milk, and let's try to make something for a latte. So there are a bunch of options. You first of all pick your milk type. So we've got regular milk, half and half, almond milk, oat milk, and soy milk, and coconut milk. And then there's the foam button. The options here are hot cappuccino, hot latte, hot flat white, hot thick foam, cold thick foam. And when you've selected that, you go ahead and press the start button. At this point, it will tell you which of the two available tips to install. Although the instruction manual does note that you should have installed the tip first. So this is really more of a check to make sure you've done it. I already have the right tip in, the impeller tip. Let's get this thing going. So the frothing process takes about 3.5 minutes. And so you can see what's going on. I decided to throw caution to the wind and lift off the top. Now there's two things going on here. We're heating the milk, so there is a heating element built into this. And we're also frothing it up. So you can see it stirring away there. Not too fast, but it's just heating up the milk and putting a little bit of air in. About halfway through the process, it goes into a kind of turbo mode to really bring some air into this now as part of the frothing. And as the countdown runs down, well, it's hard to tell from here. So let's put this milk into a cup and see what we got. So initially, we've got just hot milk, and that fills up one of these glasses. And then into the second glass, we have a little bit of foam, not a huge amount, but that would just be enough for some latte art. So let's compare that now to using a different tip. The system comes with two frothing tips. So there's the impeller tip, which we've just been using, and they say that's best for hot latte, hot flat white, and hot cappuccino. But there's also the disc tip, which is best for hot thick foam, cold thick foam, and stir mode. So I decided to put the same amount of milk in again, and this time use the disc tip. So this time I picked the hot thick foam option. It confirmed that I need that disc tip. Press start. And again, another 3.5 minutes where this is both heating up the milk and also adding some froth to it. And you can see the difference here as this spins, that there's clearly more air getting in. And very quickly, the volume of milk started to rise as we were injecting more and more air into this. And it wasn't long until I knew I needed to put the top back on, otherwise there was gonna be trouble. So remember, this is the same amount of milk we started with, but because we've added all this frothing, there should be more volume. And you can see here, there clearly is. I'm able to fill up 2 cups of basically straight foam now. There's almost no heated milk, it's just foam. And in fact, there was still some milk left, so I needed to go grab another glass, and I ended up getting a good amount in there as well. So look at the difference between these two modes. Now I had to give this all a try. That's so good. And I have to say, it's really delicious. Just this amount of frothing really brings out the sweetness of the milk. For the next test, I wanted to try a milk alternative. So I'm using almond plant-based milk. Now this is the Barista series. That means it's really intended for milk frothing. And the instructions with the DREO do recommend that you use the Barista brands. So that's what I'm trying here. So I set my milk type to almond milk, and I set the foam mode to hot latte and press start. It reminded me that I need the impeller tip, which I had already added. And again, 3.5 minutes for the frothing. And the process itself, well, I couldn't really notice any difference from the regular milk frothing. It looked about the same. And when I pour this out into a glass, I ended up with about the same amount of volume as well. I decided to give it a try, and yeah, I'm just not really a big fan of almond milk. Okay, so that's the froth mode, but there's also a stir mode. So these are the settings on the other side of the DREO, and they're completely independent. So you would either pick froth mode or you would pick stir mode. So the two things you can set in stir mode are firstly speed. So the speed is either slow or fast. And there's temp. So the temp goes from 130 through to 170 in 10-degree increments in Fahrenheit, or to cold. To test this out, I decided to crack open the protein powder. Now I followed the dosing guidelines of using 8 fluid ounces of water and then 2 scoops of the protein powder. That's quite thick, and I find this stuff is really hard to dissolve by just adding it into water and stirring it myself. So I set it going on fast mode and cold for the temperature. I don't want heated protein milk, thank you. And you can see here it's spinning away, and look what it's starting with. All of that powder there. That's a real thick amount of powder, and it very quickly gets going and starts dissolving that powder into the water. And it's already looking like milk, really just within a few seconds. Now, it doesn't give you a countdown for the stirring, so I figured this was just going to kind of run forever, but it didn't. It ran for about a minute and a half, at which point it beeped to tell me that it had stopped and presented me with its familiar "enjoy your time" message. It kind of looked like it had all dissolved, so I poured this into a glass and then gave it a taste.
Oh, there's still some big lumps in here. Let's run it a bit longer.
Yeah, needed to give it a bit longer. So I just ran it a second time, again, about a minute and a half of stirring, and one more try.
Yeah, that's actually really quite good. I really struggle to get this stuff dissolved normally. So I'm quite impressed with this. I mean, it just has not much to it. It's pretty simple to use. There's the foam settings, hot and cold, and the non-foam settings, hot and cold. And then, you know, it's just a case of putting the right thing in, and it tells you what to do there as well. And it's completely hands-free. So it's something that makes it very easy to steam milk for coffee, for foam, for protein powder drinks. I'm going to be making good use of this.